Prepare to be captivated in this riveting video, as we uncover the gripping stories of 5 children sentenced to life imprisonment. Delving deep into their lives, we unravel the profound impact of these sentences and the ever-evolving legal landscape surrounding juvenile justice. These tales shed light on the complexities of justice and the relentless pursuit of reform within the judicial system. Evan Miller, a name synonymous with juvenile justice reform, was at the center of a landmark U.S. Supreme Court case. In 2003, at the age of 14, Miller was involved in a crime that would forever change his life. He and a friend, Colby Smith, brutally assaulted and killed a neighbor, Cole Cannon, in Alabama. Miller and Smith set Cannon's trailer on fire, which resulted in his death. Their motive was allegedly robbery. Evan Miller's actions led to his conviction of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This severe punishment for a juvenile offender sparked a legal battle that eventually reached the U.S. Supreme Court. In the case of Miller v. Alabama, 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life without parole sentences for juveniles violated the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. This decision recognized that children, due to their developmental differences and potential for rehabilitation, should not be subject to the same harsh sentencing as adults. Evan Miller's case, along with a companion case involving Cuntrell Jackson, has had a profound impact on juvenile justice in the United States. It led to a shift in how the justice system deals with young offenders, emphasizing the importance of considering their age and circumstances when determining appropriate sentences. This legal precedent has contributed to ongoing efforts to reform sentencing practices for juvenile offenders nationwide. Centoya Brown's case gained international attention due to the complex circumstances surrounding her crime and her subsequent legal battles. Born in 1988, Brown was convicted of the murder of Johnny Allen, a 43-year-old man who had solicited her for sex when she was 16 years old. Brown claimed that she killed Allen in self-defense, fearing for her life, as she believed he was reaching for a gun. Centoya's case highlighted the harsh reality of sex trafficking and the abuse faced by many juveniles involved in the commercial sex industry. She had a troubled childhood marked by neglect, abuse, and early exposure to drugs and violence. After her arrest, she was tried as an adult and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in Tennessee. However, her case drew widespread public outcry, with advocates arguing that she was a victim of child sex trafficking and should not have been treated as a hardened criminal. Over the years, there was a growing awareness of the impact of trauma on juvenile offenders and the need for rehabilitation and a second chance. In 2019, Tennessee's governor granted clemency to Centoya Brown, reducing her sentence. She was released from prison after serving 15 years and has since become an advocate for criminal justice reform, particularly for juveniles who have experienced abuse and exploitation. Her case remains a symbol of the ongoing debates about the treatment of juveniles in the legal system and the complex interplay of factors leading to criminal behavior. George Stinney Jr.'s case is a tragic chapter in the history of the American criminal justice system. Born in 1929, he was a 14-year-old African-American boy who lived in Alcolu, South Carolina. In 1944, George was accused of the brutal murder of 2 young white girls, 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and 8-year-old Mary Emma Timms. The crime shocked the small community, leading to intense racial tensions and a rushed investigation. Stinney's trial was swift and deeply flawed. He was represented by a court-appointed attorney who barely mounted a defense, and there were no witnesses or physical evidence linking him to the crime. The prosecution's case relied largely on Stinney's alleged confession, which was reportedly obtained under duress. Within 10 minutes of deliberation, an all-white jury convicted him, and he was sentenced to death by electrocution. His execution took place just 83 days after the girls' murders, making him the youngest person to be executed in the United States in the 20th century. Decades later, new evidence emerged, shedding doubt on Stinney's guilt and raising questions about the fairness of his trial. In 2014, his conviction was posthumously vacated by a South Carolina judge. The case of George Stinney Jr. serves as a tragic reminder of the historical racial injustice and hasty proceedings that have marred the U.S. criminal justice system, leading to a profound reevaluation of how we handle cases involving juveniles and the importance of due process and fair trials. Lionel Tate is an American who gained notoriety for being the youngest individual in the 20th century to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His case revolves around the tragic death of Tiffany Unick, a 6-year-old girl, in Florida in 1999. Tate, at the age of 12, was convicted of first-degree murder for Tiffany's death. The prosecution argued that he had brutally beaten her while imitating professional wrestling moves. This case raised profound legal and ethical questions about whether a child should be tried as an adult and sentenced to life in prison. Tate's initial trial was fraught with controversy, as he lacked proper legal representation, and there were concerns about his competency to stand trial. He was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in 2001. However, the case received widespread attention and led to a reconsideration of juvenile sentencing practices. In 2004, following a series of appeals and public outcry, Lionel Tate's sentence was reduced to 1 year of house arrest and 10 years of probation. This case highlighted the need for a more nuanced approach to juvenile justice, recognizing that children are developmentally different from adults and should be treated accordingly within the legal system. Tate's case serves as a cautionary tale, shedding light on the complexities of prosecuting and sentencing juveniles for serious crimes, as well as the ongoing debate over the treatment of young offenders in the criminal justice system. Terrence Graham's story, etched in the annals of legal history, has served as a beacon of hope for countless juvenile offenders and a catalyst for profound change in the realm of juvenile sentencing. Born in 1987, Graham's journey through the justice system would ultimately reshape the way society perceives young offenders. At the age of 16, Terrence Graham found himself facing the stark reality of life behind bars. Convicted for armed burglary and robbery in Florida, it was not the nature of his crimes that would make headlines, but the life sentence without the possibility of parole that accompanied his verdict. The significance of Graham's case became evident in 2010, when the United States Supreme Court took up the landmark case of Graham versus Florida. Their ruling would echo far beyond the courtroom, sending ripples through the legal landscape and fundamentally altering the treatment of juvenile offenders. The Supreme Court's decision was unequivocal, sentencing a juvenile to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for non-homicide offenses violated the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. In this pronouncement, the court recognized the profound developmental differences between adolescents and adults. It underscored the imperative need for a more rehabilitative approach in dealing with young offenders, acknowledging their potential for growth and change. Terrence Graham's case emerged as a clarion call for reform in juvenile sentencing laws across the United States. While the gravity of his criminal actions was undeniable, the nature of his sentence exposed the broader issues of justice and appropriate punishment for young individuals involved in non-homicide offenses. Graham's journey was not merely a legal saga. It was a turning point in the evolution of juvenile justice, ushering in a new era where the potential for redemption and rehabilitation takes precedence over retribution. His case serves as a testament to the power of the justice system to adapt, learn, and correct past injustices, shaping a more compassionate and equitable future for all.